It was 1933. If you remember, there was a frightful depression on in our country. Millions were unemployed. In New York City, you would go through the tunnel into Gimbels from, say, the square where Gimbels begins. It goes all the way through to the Holland Tunnel. They were sleeping with the permission of the mayor, 3 and 4 deep, as far as the eye could go. There's no place to go. In the park, in the summer months, they were allowed to sleep in the park, sleep all over the place. And the long lines for coffee and bread that were there to give them. There were millions unemployed. We then had a population of not more than, say, 130 million, as against today's 192 million. I was a dancer, and if you couldn't eat, you couldn't pay to watch a dancer. So there were no shows playing on Broadway. I think we had 5 Broadway shows, and they were running on paper. Yes, people passing out paper to go and see them, really, instead of the usual 50 and 60 shows that you used to get. Well, what I'm getting at, I didn't have a job, I had no money, and I was living in a basement on 75th Street, and he lived on 72nd Street, in a very lovely home that was owned by Morgenthau, whose son was then the treasury of our country, a cabinet member, but his father owned this house, but he didn't live there, and he rented the first floor to my friend Abdullah. I said to Abdullah in the month of October, late October, Ab, you know, I've been gone from Barbados for almost 12 years. Came here in 22. And it's almost 12 years, I've never had a desire to go back. But now I have a hungry desire, a haunting desire to go to Barbados. Not a thing stops me but the lack of money. I have no money. He said to me, you are in Barbados. I said, I'm in Barbados? He said, yes, you are now in Barbados. And so you see Barbados, and you see America from Barbados, and you can smell the tropical land of Barbados, see only the little homes of Barbados, and that's all you do. You just simply sleep this night in Barbados. Well, I thought him insane, really. I mean, at the moment, it seemed so stupid, because 72nd Street, we still had 50 and 60-story buildings. And little Barbados was a little 3-story building, almost the tallest that you'd find, and narrow little streets and no sidewalks. And I'm walking on a sidewalk wider than the wide street of Barbados on 72nd Street. Well, nevertheless, that night I slept in Barbados. I assumed that I'm in Barbados in my mother's home. And then I saw America relative to Barbados, and it wasn't under me that night. It was north of me about 2,000 miles. Well, the next day, I didn't tell him anything. About a week later, when nothing happened, I thought I would approach him. This time we've moved into November. I said, you know, Ab, there is not a thing has happened. He wouldn't discuss it with me. He turned his back on me and went into his little library and slammed the door. About 3 times I tried to open up the discussion with my friend Ab between that moment when I first talked to him and the end. He would never discuss it. On the basis, how can he discuss with me how I am going to Barbados when I am already in Barbados? That's stupid to discuss how I'm going to go when I am in Barbados. And if I am faithful to my assumption, I can't discuss the how. I am already there. Well, this went on. On the morning of the 4th day of December, there's no job, no place to go, and the last boat that will get me there, my Christmas, is going to sail on the 6th. Under my door is a little letter from my brother Victor. And he said, as a family, we were never around the table at Christmas together. That Cecil, that is my oldest brother, he left home before the last was born. Because we have a large family, there's an interval of 8 years between my sister, Daphne, who was the 8th child, and then my brother, Joe. Well, in that interval, my brother Cecil went off to Demerara. So, never as a family were we ever together at Christmas. So in the letter, he justifies why he's asked me to come. He said, I know you don't have a job, and there's no excuse for not coming. And so I'm enclosing a draft for $50. You may need a shirt, a pair of shoes, socks, or something. And I've notified the Furnace Whitty line that you will come for a ticket. So the ticket is waiting for you at the Furnace line. Well, I was so excited, I rushed on down to the Furnace line, and I gave them my letter. They said, yes, we have a message here from your family in Barbados. We'll give you a ticket, but we haven't any first-class tickets left. You can go third class and use the facilities of the first, but you have to sleep third class until you hit the island of St. Thomas. When you hit St. Thomas, someone disembarks, then you may take a first-class bunk. I said, I'll take it. I rushed right up to Abdullah. And I said, Ab, I got my ticket for Barbados, but I have to go third class. I'm all elated and happy about it. He said, who told you that you're going to Barbados? And who told you that you went to Barbados third class? You went to Barbados and you went first class. Would say no more. He isn't even happy that I'm going to Barbados now. So I went down on the morning of the 6th day of December with my third class ticket. Went up to the desk as they're checking in the passengers, and I put my ticket forward. He said, I've got good news for you, Mr. Goddard. Someone has cancelled, and you're going first class. And I went first class, all the way down to Barbados. 10 days down, 10 days back, with 3 heavenly months in Barbados. So all that I did, I tried to the best of my ability with his, I would call almost insolence. He was rude. But he taught me by his rudeness that I cannot discuss how if I am doing what I'm supposed to do. He tells me right away, you are in Barbados. Like someone comes to you now, and you would apply this principle towards their request, and they say, oh, I would love to be happily married. And you say to her or him, you are now happily married. They look at you as though you're insane. But that's exactly what you're supposed to do. You are now happily married. Well, if I am now happily married and I'm a lady, I would instantly begin to feel that ring there in my imagination. I'd let others see that I have my ring, for that would imply I'm happily married. It's a wedding ring. And so if I don't wear it from then on, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So in my imagination, I have to go to bed wearing my ring. And actually do all that I would do in that state. Oh, he said, you are in Barbados. And I'm in New York City physically, but he put me in Barbados in my imagination. So that I slept in Barbados to the best of my ability. But you know, days go into weeks, and the weeks went into a month, and I'm trying my best to open up the discussion with him to get a little hope. No hope. He wouldn't give me any encouragement if I did what he told me to do. But we all are human enough to want another little discussion, another little push. And so he taught me the lesson that there is no such thing as a little pregnancy. No such thing.